everyone to Fireside Chats. I'm Raquel Keller and I'm your host. I am happy to have Elaine Weiner-Reed here with us today. She is part of the Visionary Women exhibit up at Columbia Art Center. And we'll be talking to her a little bit about her work and process. Welcome, Elaine.
Hi, thank you for having me, Raquel. It's an honor and pleasure.
My pleasure, my pleasure. All right, Elaine, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well, thank you for asking, and be sure to cut me off if I go too long. I'm an artist, and I paint and I sculpt. And I started sculpting in college and love the tactile feel of working in clay. We did all kinds of things over the 5 years I was there. And then as I started on life, I didn't have time for it. I didn't have the materials. I actually hung on to my mallet and my chisels, but didn't even find them until about 2 years ago again. So in the 1980s, I started oil painting. And if you can see these two oils here, I studied with a European master. I was very lucky to have him, and he was wonderful. So I learned the very traditional classic techniques of underpainting and making skin tone and flesh tone, and I love that. I did oil painting for years, and paints are very expensive, so I didn't actually start until I got my first promotion at my day job and was able to afford a tube of paint and some brushes and lessons. And then somewhere around actually about 1990, maybe a little before, I started wanting to be freer in my work. So I went into watercolors and made messes. Honestly, it is amazing. And as one of my mentors always used to say, it's about controlling your water. So we would laugh, and I just love it. I love mixing color, very tactile. So it's probably been the siren call for me to get back into actually making and building things again for years. But somewhere in the period, I never worked on canvas, and then sometime about a decade later again, I thought, well, let me see what it's like to apply paint on different surfaces. And I started actually at that point mixing acrylics and watercolor on paper. And I guess actually it was the 1990s, early 1990s. I am more comfortable, I guess, excuse me, painting on the floor. So whether it's watercolor or something, and if I have my watercolor paper, flip the board, I'm on the ground, I might be kneeling on it. And I remember I had studied and done workshops with Skip Lawrence years ago in Maine. And I would be on the ground and everything, and I'd be mixing, and he looked at one and he said, "Is that acrylic or is it watercolor?" And I went, "Yes," because I didn't know. I said, "I just use what's at hand and what works." And he went, "All right, you're on the way." So that was wonderful. And that all, I think, ties into my passion for trying to understand human dynamics and why people do what they do, why we are the way we are. So it's this whole identity thing, and what pieces of our past and our kind of nature and nurture, how people evolve, even in the same family. It fascinates me, family dynamics. And I think this whole duality for me, the 2D and the 3D, a series that I do, which I call on many of my paintings, they fall into it, masks and mirrors, that it comes down to what we reveal and what we conceal. And then the fact that when we even look at ourselves and we're trying to go from youth and all the things that go along with when you don't fall into culture's classic beauty descriptions. So part of my push in this last decade is to break out of what people think is pretty. I don't paint what people would probably think of as pretty paintings anymore, or and as I've gone deeper and gotten more expressive sometimes, I'm painting and trying to create from the inside out. I am also a twin. So I have a twin brother, love him to pieces. We are so, again, the opposites. How do I differentiate from him? Because when I grew up, and our names were even said as kind of a compound word, Mark and Elaine. He was first. All of who I am and how I grew up and the family, which was a great family, dysfunctional as all are.
All are, yes, yes.
But you gotta love it. It's how we get our character comes from those roots. So I would just, I just wanted to be different. I wanted to be alone. The nuns kept us in the same classroom all the time. So I felt like I couldn't breathe in some way. And finally, I thought, well, I found art, and the Etch-a-Sketch was my first sketchbook. And I became the twin who could draw. I read, I was into Nancy Drew, so my love of mysteries, and I now try to paint mysteries for other people to reimagine, I say. So it's like, imagine this, what would this story tell you? What would this painting say? Because it would be different for every person. So from that whole, the mystery, the trying to figure out, the identity, all those things are part of what I do. And I guess with every decade and the more people I meet and learn about, I am in awe of what they survive. I couldn't do it. So I know, and that is absolutely takes my breath away and is so beautiful. But these people that might not be thought of as beautiful in this world, and I'm like, look deeper, because you're missing something. There is, I think the true beauty in a human is all that comes from within and comes out. And if we're lucky, first of all, you have to be discerning sometimes to see it. We have to be patient and look beyond this, because this is changing and degrading by the second, right? So to me, that how are they? Are they kind? And through this identity exploration I'm working on, I want people to connect in a way that's personal, to allow them and allow each of us that are, say, in discussions when we talk about a work or in a private two-person talk, to see and respect and try to come to this understanding of how the empathy thing. We can't ever, I could never fit in anybody else's shoes, let alone try to walk in them. But to me, they are superheroes, everyday heroes around me. And so when I got into thinking sculpture, I thought, I love the smooth, I love touching stone. I did my first stone carving in Poland in 2014, and I loved it. And I tried to let the material speak to me, and I got lost in it, and it was just incredible. And that, I think, really put me back into knowing how important it is for me to connect all sides of me, the 2 and the 3D sides. So this
I had that with wood block carving.
Yeah.
Like I was doing for a woodblock print, and I was just continually working on it for several days. And I remember in my head, I was sort of like a gopher, do you know what I mean? Like I'm going through it, and I just remember sitting back and going, oh yes, I need more of this. I absolutely need more of this, and then just going right back to work.
See, there's something about, we get lost in our paintings but something about trying to figure these guys out. So to show one, and I'll
yes,
show
please.
This one, can you see it okay? Okay. This one I call, and I'll hold it, I named it, I finished her in mid to late February of this year. And she is called Hope. And the naming of this, Hope, Stories of Courage. I met this wonderful woman, and I'll hold her here for a minute. I met her last year out there in Southern California, and we had time. And she has been through hell and back with her experiences and her needs, like bad needs. And that woman is this, you know, she has to use a walker now. She's on hold for her second knee surgery. But as I was making this already, before I knew more of her story and her journey, when it came time to naming this sculpture, I thought, this is hope, because she will be walking again someday. But that when we go through hard times and pulling ourselves up by sheer will to keep going and figure it out day by day. So in the making of these, because I have no roadmap for how I just started. From my first ones I did in 2018, some are larger, from using hangers and plaster and gauze and building it, and it's not working, and I'm figuring out this puzzle and the physics of it. So add that, you know, when you add that dimension to something, the depth and everything, that challenges me in new ways too, how to make it work. So I was in California when I first started on another one. Well, actually, this lady, and I didn't have many materials, out of place. And I started thinking, well, how do I make it? I wanted her, and I call her "Come As You Are." Because for this phase in my life, that's kind of it. This is what you get. And no apologies anymore, because we've earned every wrinkle, every scar is a set of stories, you know, a volume. So as I was figuring her out, I want pieces to be, you can't see through with a no light, but that you can see through and into some of the inner things, that the vertebrae, the pieces, the fragile pieces that of the mesh that I use. And for some of the pieces, as I'm trying to keep the form and trying to build it, there's tinfoil, and I think a rock from California, and this girl for balance. So whatever can work. And I thought, that's kind of a metaphor for life, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right, especially now. I mean, how are you managing, right? We're cut off. Can't get groceries sometimes, so we're rewriting the script.
Yeah. I am really grateful for scientists, like for the curious and for the fixers and, you know, the problem solvers. And I do think that in some ways, while we may not be, you know, creating vaccines, I do think that we are, I think art helps heal other parts of people, you know?
It does. I think I was able to have, really lucky to have a solo exhibition in 2018 at Maryland Hall. And the space, it was 1,000 square feet. And that whole responsibility of an artist as a human and to give back, I got just a flush of terror, you know, and chills, thinking, now I owe it, not just to me to deliver my best work, something, not an empty painting. It has to say something. Whether people listen, whether it's meant for them, it's out of my hands. But it has to have so much meaning that I can pour into it ethically and as an artist. And now in this space, if they're coming here, it's honoring me. I must honor them in that same way. And that's the whole.
You have to deliver. They have trusted you and gifted you with this, I'll say, time to share what you do. Right. And then they're choosing to spend time with you.
Right. From something else, from being with family, from.
Right.
That's it.
And I do think it's a responsibility. Like, I think it's like, you know, it's a responsibility to the viewer. It's a responsibility to the curator. You know, like I was in a show probably about a year or so ago, and one of my driving forces was I didn't want anyone to question the decision to include me.
Exactly.
You know, it's like I am going to pour it all in, and that is what my gift to the person is like, I'm going to make sure that you know that I think this much of you. Do you know?
Yes.
So
and if there can be anything, I don't know if you're the same way, but once I'm done with a work, it's my baby, yes, but now it needs to go out in the world and to be seen, and that interaction, to me, it brings it to life. It comes full circle from coming inside of me to going out to going inside other people, hopefully heal them in some way, or put a spark in there to imagine something else, or write a story about it, or do their own work. But somehow, if we are lucky for someone to see our work and look at it, then there's more than just, it's not about the money. It's about making a difference for me. What is my legacy besides probably being an art hoarder at some point by the end of my days? Is it bigger than me? If I touch one person with and stir them or honor them or connect with them, then I'm happy.
I call it finding my tribe, because it really isn't about the money. I mean, the money's nice, don't get me wrong. It's like, oh, yay! I can buy more art supplies.
That's the icing on the cake, I know. Exactly
right. But I do, like, it's like, oh, like, you're one of my people. Like I have now, like, connected, and I really do think of it as, like, building that tribe. And
that's right.
Yeah.
And then they become part of our stories because they are in it. So it's this outreach that's so important and vital that I know you probably started life kind of as a little introvert too, and that we have to, but it's a responsibility I think we have to, and it's a joy then when I connect one-on-one that I've been given a gift when that happens again. So I just hope that through this time too, that through us healing by doing our creative work, that we can help others too. And
but let's tell people where they can find you and your gifts.
Well, I am mostly especially these days, working at my home studio in Severn, Maryland. And so they can find me online. I'm on pretty much, I have a website presence, email address. Should I just say my website?
Yeah, go ahead and spell it out if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, sure. It's www.elaineWeinerReed.com, ELAINEWEINERREED.com. No hyphen I have a hyphen in my name, but not in the website. And I'm on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is EWRArtist, all run together. I'm an artist in residence at Maryland Hall for the creative art.
Beautiful.
And so hopefully you can look on their website. They have a new homepage at home, and I'm making some painting videos now, very amateur. So to try to help people if they need to paint in the safety of their own home and throw paint on and let some things out and find some new ideas and angles. So.
Excellent, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here. It has been a pleasure. My pleasure,
Raquel. And I can't wait for this to be kind of closure that we can meet in person. And have
Me too. Well, we'll have coffee or wine.
Or both.
Or both.